Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And today, or shall I say yesterday, was a pretty sad day for an England fan. We're out of the World Cup to Croatia. Congratulations to all the Croatians out there. You guys played really well on the day and you deserve to win. And so I decided to try and find some solace by checking out some awesome British tanks in World of Tanks. Now, I went on the whatreplays.eu website. Wasn't really too much that I liked the look of. However, on the Russian website, and it looks like the Russians know how to play British tanks better than we do, at least on the European server. I found an awesome game in the FV4004, the tier 9 British turreted tank destroyer. It is the Conway. Now, the player today is called Stradat Mayo Prisvani, which I believe I found out translates into suffering is my mission, or suffering is my objective. And you know what? I think that was pretty much how I felt about the last hour of the football yesterday, right? And so this I thought was just absolutely perfect for today and how I was feeling. And it's also an absolutely kick-ass game, as you're going to be checking out in the next 10 minutes or so. Now, the FV4004 Conway is not the original British tank destroyer. Of course, the Tortoise was out before the turreted version of this vehicle came out. But this tank has been changed, at least fairly recently, at least in the last year, with the FV4005 Stage 2. Now, what Wargaming decided to do was to give this vehicle another gun, a 5.5-inch gun, or I think it's like a 139mm main armament that has 600 alpha damage on its armor-piercing rounds, and it has Hesh rounds, I believe, that do 770 alpha damage. Now, a lot of you might be a little bit disappointed considering this is the first replay I have showed of the Conway, I think since my tank review back probably in 2014 or something, that Suffering, as I'm going to be calling him throughout this replay, has decided to use the 120mm. But I kind of agree with him. I feel that this is the most competitive gun on the tank. Sure, it's fun to just splash in those Hesh rounds, and 600 alpha damage is great, but it's about the rate of fire and the damage per minute that you can pump out with this 120mm main armament that really makes the Conway special. And of course, that it's got that fairly flexible, fully traversable turret. And that's something I'd like to highlight. If you choose to use the 120mm on this vehicle, you do have a fully traversable turret, and if you use that 5.5-inch gun, I think you can only turn it, is it 45 degrees to the left and the right, or it might be 90 degrees to the left and the right. I'm not 100% certain there. But that means that it's very awkward to play with this vehicle inside the sniper mode. And the reason for that is that when you're inside the sniper mode, as I would have hoped that everybody has done by now, or at least if you like the look of it, if you don't know, try it out and see what you think about it. You can activate this checkbox to have horizontal stabilization in sniper mode. So what this does is it means that if you turn the tracks to the left and the right, the turret actually compensates and turns for you inside the sniper mode. And that can allow you to wiggle your tracks left and right, amazingly useful in a light tank if you want to keep moving and want to also snipe on the move. And it can keep your gun stabilized towards the target in front of you. Incredibly useful. However, there's no stabilization for semi-traversable turrets that can only go a certain amount to the left and the right, at least on this version. I'm not sure if the console has that. Either way, if it does, let me know in the comments down below. But I would absolutely love Wargaming to add stabilization for the semi-traversable tanks as well, because I've been enjoying my K91 quite a lot, but that stabilization is really a game changer for me. Alright, so check out what the rate of fire on this 120mm is. It's 7.69 rounds a minute, something that 5.5-inch gun can only dream of. Now, the Conway has one of the highest damage per minute in the game because of it. I mean, to put it into perspective, the Tortoise, which has the second highest damage per minute in the game, fires 8.45 rounds a minute, so this is almost a round less, well, 3/4 of a round less, I should mention, but it's still great damage per minute on this tank for having a fully traversable turret. Now, of course, the problem with this vehicle is that it's a Centurion hull. And it's not exactly a special Centurion hull, and that makes it very vulnerable from the front, from the side, and we can see that even tier 8 tanks there were able to pick apart Suffering's hit points, and he's down to 353, but he shuts down that T-44-100, who was putting rounds into his side armor, now picking up 3 kills, 3 times what the rest of his team has been able to achieve so far, but with the VK4502B securing a kill there on the Indian Panzer, we can't claim that statement for long. Alright, so how is Suffering going to be able to get out of this situation? He's lost a lot of his hit points, although he's done some damage, and as seems to happen on Runeberg at the moment, the enemy team towards the north has flanked through the east and is now creating a crossfire for the heavy tanks that haven't managed to break through the town. Now, Suffering's actually going to load a high explosive round here, and the high explosive rounds on this tank are actually special. They're HESH rounds, high explosive squashed head ammunition, with 550 alpha damage and 120 millimeters of penetration. That's exceptionally high penetration for a high explosive round. The Stridsvang S1 there with its 30mm of all-round armor will be overmatched by all 91mm caliber guns, so wham bam jump done there for the Conway, shutting down the tier 8 Swedish tank destroyer. So now Suffering has an Emil that seems to be pressuring his VK, but an Object 704 making his way aggressively down the street, and look at the enemy team. They are being greedy. They are no cap, kill all right now, and you know what? If I was on the enemy team, I would probably be the same. I would think that we would be able to get through this one easily. However, Suffering is going to try and apply his name to the enemy team here and see if he can get through this one. Now, he's in a platoon with the Stridsvang 103. Oh, which is, she's located all the way towards the south of the map and battling out against a Black Dog there. Now, Suffering shuts down a T-54 Mod 1, while the VK also shuts down an Emil 2, and suddenly, a game that was looking very lopsided is now looking rather even. But this Object 704, is he going to be able to finish off the VK? He does! Now, Suffering puts a round right into the back of the Tier 9 Soviet tank destroyer, setting him on fire, and that should allow him to finish him off with the second round. Wow, good stuff, but look at the hit points left on the Scorpion and the E50 here. And the Conway is down to just 43 hit points. Suffering's going to have to be very careful. The E50 finishes off his platoon mate, and that leaves Suffering here in a 1 versus 3 situation. All right, T-30 blazing around that corner. Scorpion, E50. Will Suffering be able to escape? What's his plan? He actually gets spotted. I guess that must have been vision from the E50, perhaps here. Just managed to catch the tail end of him. Either that, or there's some windows that I didn't know about in this kind of location. Either way, Suffering almost manages to TK himself there, losing 12 of his hit points, but it's not really going to make the biggest difference. And oh, there you go. 2 turreted tank destroyers go to town, and only 1 goes out. And Ivan 7 on the enemy team is shut down. Oh, Suffering puts a good round into the back of the E50 there, bringing him down to 445 hit points. Now, that's a little bit awkward, because that means that he's going to still have to penetrate 2 rounds if he wants to finish him off. But immediately snaps in a second shell, and now this game is looking very close indeed. So the E50 seems to just be holding position, I guess scared of the Conway. Probably I would load a high explosive round if I was on the E50 side right now. We'll have to see how that pans out. And on 6,700 damage, a very impressive total for a Tier 9 tank destroyer, Suffering spots the Scorpion coming around the corner, and both of them fluff their shells, or at least Suffering fluffs the shells into the rocks, and the Scorpion fluffs the round into the top of the Conway's turret, which is actually quite well armored. Now Suffering loads a high explosive round and does 503 damage to the Scorpion, and turns his attention towards the E50, who he manages to penetrate right through the upper hull, doing 56 damage, and now the Scorpion's going to be coming around the corner, and he has to roll high if he wants to finish him off, and he does! Wow, could not have been closer there. Take a look at that one. Scorpion literally with the barrel right towards his hull there. The Scorpion didn't pull the trigger. Maybe he thought that he had enough hit points to take a hit. It wasn't to be, and Suffering picks up his 10th kill of the game. And thanks to a little bit of a platoon there right towards the end, they get 14 kills between them. Not a bad result for a lightly armored British tank destroyer on this city map. So unsurprisingly, an ace tanker here for Suffering with 1,874 base experience points. That is gigantic for a Tier 9 tank. A Pools medal for those 10 kills, a Brothers in Arms medal for securing 12 kills amongst their platoon, a Sparta medal for ricocheting a round with less than 10% of the hit points of the vehicle remaining, and also a Steel Wall 2. How many rounds received? 13 with 2,200 block. That'll be enough to kill the vehicle one time over, and a high caliber for that is 7,683 damage dealt. So a phenomenal carry here for Suffering, showing you that the British tank destroyers aren't all about either ridiculous alpha or a crazy heavy frontal armor. And the Conway is still one of my favorite vehicles that's inside the Vehicle Conservation Center at the Tank Museum. Of course, I had the pleasure of seeing it once again at Tank Fest just a couple of weeks ago, because this was actually kind of a knee-jerk reaction by the Brits as to how they could deal with the IS-3, which was paraded at the Victory Parades in 1945. And it's just kind of laughable in a way that you'd have your gorgeous, sleek IS-3, and then this absolutely horrific tall tank where they were just trying to create a turret where they could rush a 120mm gun on a Centurion as quickly as possible. How ludicrous. Anyway, Suffering, thank you so much for uploading your replay on the whatreplays.ru website. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it allowed me to calm down from the football a little bit. Anyway, I hope all of you out there enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. But if you hated it, make sure you give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about turreted tank destroyers at tier 9. Because there's quite a lot of them, right? We've got the WT Alf Panzer IV, we've got the T-30, and we've got the Conway. And how do you feel they stack up compared to their counterparts like the T-95, the Jagdtiger, and the Tortoise? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.